Be honest with me. How many times have you watched something and thought to yourself, can we please leave the main character alone for 5 minutes and go back to the villain? Because I have. I think about it a lot. Sometimes I get tired of the hero, tired of the certainty, the speeches, the acting like they know what the right thing is when half the time they don't. Meanwhile, the villain is over there looking interesting, unwell, and deeply committed to the bit. And that's where we have to cut the subtext. Because the real question usually isn't who's good or bad, it's why some characters pull us in even when they shouldn't. And of course, psychology actually explains why this happens. When stories give us proximity, context, or moral ambiguity, our brains can shift how we judge behavior. Research calls this alignment. When stories give us access to characters' thoughts, history, or emotional logic. When we spend time with characters, even bad ones, we stop seeing their actions as isolated choices and start seeing them as responses. Once that happens, our allegiance can shift, even if their actions don't. That is exactly why a stranger's cruelty feels unforgivable compared to a villain who we've followed for seasons, who feels complicated. Character psychology shows that the more access we get to someone's inner world, the more empathy we feel for them, even when they're in the wrong, even when they're dangerous, even when they just desperately need a journal and a nap. That's why characters like Scar feel bigger than just evil.
Is that a challenge?
Temper.
I wouldn't dream of challenging you.
His resentment,
Pity. Why not?
rejection,
Well, as far as brains go, I got the lion's share, but when it comes to brute strength...
the sibling who never got picked. That's why Snape keeps people arguing till this day. Was he brave? Was he bitter? Was he both? Exactly. Nobody knows. And that's why Loki went from to a fan favorite. Give a villain pain, humor, and cheekbones, and suddenly everybody loses objectivity. Then there's characters like Light Yagami. Now, prepare to hear me talk about Death Note a lot. It's one of my comfort shows. I watch it way too much. But what makes Light different is that unlike most other villains, he begins as the protagonist. We don't meet him as a threat. We meet him as the lead. So instead of watching someone become dangerous from a distance, we experience his descent in real time. He never sees himself as evil. He sees himself as necessary, and that's exactly what makes him so terrifying. A hero will destroy one thing to save the world, but a villain will destroy the world to save one thing. And if the writing is good enough, we'll keep nodding along longer than we should. Much longer than we should. That's why Megamind, John Murphy from the 100, or Maleficent works. Some were funny, some were hardened by survival, and some were introduced as monsters long before we got their side of the story. I say this to say, real people are rarely good or bad. We're loving, we're petty, we're loyal, we're defensive, we're healing and confused all at once. So when we root for the villain, we're not saying harm is okay. We're not calling evil good. We are responding to complexity. We're noticing pain and motivation and contradiction and the ways stories challenge simple labels. So the next time you catch yourself rooting for the villain, don't ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Ask what the story understood about people that made you feel something in the first place. Because the best stories don't tell us who to fear or who to cheer for. They remind us people are rarely as simple as the roles they're given, and that's always worth cutting into.